Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new video within Skylanders Week 2. It has fallen upon the Thursday slate for this day, which means it's Trap Team Day, Trap Team Thursday, you could go as far to say. So naturally we're going to keep in line with the pattern we've conducted so far, where we're going to be ranking every single level from Trap Team. There's 22 in total, that's including the 4 Adventure Pack levels, and as per the norm, Elemental Gates are slightly counted towards the ranking. They're not a huge portion of the reasoning behind where I've put certain levels. For main reasonings, as always, are the nostalgia as well as the overall quality behind the level. How well is it crafted based on how good it looks, how good it sounds, for balance of challenge and exploration. So all in all, I'm really looking forward to this ranking because Trap Team is my favourite game. It might be very late on a Thursday evening, but it's still Thursday all the same. So without further ado, let's get into this brand new video within Skylanders Week 2. Coming in at number 22 is Golden Desert. There is a saying on this channel, if it's not Golden Desert, instant S tier level, and that's because this level is absolute hot garbage that doesn't deserve to be in the likes of my favourite Skylanders game. The best part is the arena at the end, it's challenging, and Graveclubber is so incredibly menacing. In fact, I would say he's about as menacing as they come.
I'm going to bury you!
And it means that the level is coming to an end. That ending is all the more gratuitous when it feels as though you've been working for hours to get there due to the awful pacing of the level. The catapult sections are slow and way too easy, so it breaks your immersion in the game and brings the pacing to an absolute crawl. No wonder the level is quite empty. You have barren deserts and puzzles way too simple for how late into the game it is. The only things of note in this level is the intensity of the combat. It's exciting to fight all these tough enemies all at once. It keeps you engaged, but when you contrast that with everything else that is so boring throughout the level, it makes everything else seem even worse by comparison. Plus, given there is so much emptiness, it's surprising how easy some collectibles are to find, and how impossible the others are. You feel cheated when missing out on collectibles more so than any other feeling, and the worst part is that missing something results in you needing to play this absolute garbage all over again. They didn't even bother putting in an effort into the villain quests, which also act as boring means to pad out the level runtime and withdraw from pacing even further. This is one of the worst levels of the entire franchise, let alone the worst level to come from Skylanders Trap Team. Number 21 is Midnight Museum, yet another level filled with nothingness. It doesn't really keep you engaged and it gets repetitive very quickly due to the fact that it's the same gameplay style over and over again. Certain sections are so forgettable, they all just kind of blend together for me. The puzzles don't engage you, the enemies don't engage you, the boss fight is awful because you have to deal with terrible camera angles throughout the entire thing, so you can barely even see Nightshade's attacks half the time, let alone dodge them, and that leads to some incredibly cheap moments. The colours are dark with very little contrast, so you don't even have anything eye-pleasing to distract you. The entire level is just slow-paced and generic, with nothing to offer you that any other level beforehand hasn't offered you already. At the bare minimum, it's not Golden Desert, and that's the only compliment I can pay to this level. Number 20 is Know-It-All Island, a very bland and basic level with a generic jungle theme, making this level mesh in with all the other jungle themed levels due to its lack of memorability. There is no unique hook to even entice you into this level in the first place, and with it being early in the game, there is very little challenge to keep you engaged. The turret sections feel out of place and bring the level's pace into an absolute crawl. This level doesn't do anything horrendously wrong, but the lack of anything of any real interest doesn't make it particularly good either. To summarise it, it's a level that's simply not bad, but not good either, and that's the highest praises I can pay to this level, hence why it deserves number 20 on my ranking list in my personal opinion. Number 19 is Sunscraper Spire. This level feels like what it would have been in Spyro's Adventure if light was an element introduced in that game, as the entire level is themed around said light element. Mags being taken over by Luminous is an interesting twist, and it's comedic just how obvious it is. But overall, because the whole level features the same dull scenery, there is nothing to truly invest you, and the level gets stale after a while. Luckily, when it comes to the level itself, it does have a few interesting ideas, using lasers to defeat enemies and using them to get past barriers and solve platforming puzzles is a really unique and memorable way to stack up different gameplay ideas. It's a shame these ideas are merely introduced, executed in basic standards, and then moved on from and forgotten about entirely. The level simply stitches together all these different ideas rather than just sticking to one and expanding upon it as the level progresses. When you combine all these flaws, even with interesting ideas, this level lacks excitement when compared to other levels throughout the game. As such, it ranks here at number 19. Number 18 on the other hand will be Rainfish Riviera. Seeing the Leviathan again is a nice kick of nostalgia, as is the pirate theme, since it reminds me of other simpler levels of Skylanders past. Unfortunately, this also means that besides the fishing mechanic, the level doesn't really offer anything new that we haven't seen before. The visuals are bland and meshing with all the other levels of this theme, making this level a little bit more forgettable as a result. The level does have its explorable moments, and to actually explore you must complete puzzles rather than just simply walk around and find things, which is a nice extra layer, but this level has no sort of flow to it, putting a massive hindrance on the pacing of the level, as boss fights just kind of spring out of nowhere. This arena doesn't seem like the type to house a boss fight, yet it does, but only after you've defeated the bombshell. Plus, with the key door being right there, the boss is completely skippable anyway. Having an indicator about what's coming up could have helped this level to build an atmosphere through the anticipation that you feel. Perhaps if enemy gates popped up like it was a trap the moment you step foot in the area, this way you have to defeat the boss no matter what, and you're actually inclined to do so rather than just skip it entirely, because it's annoying when Mastermind keeps running around the stage and making it hard to attack him, and he can't even attack you back, so it's not difficult, it's just frustrating to have to defeat him in this manner, especially for a melee character. However, this level does have enough variety to keep it from getting stale, but its ideas are just simply too basic in execution and there is no real flow to the level. These are the reasons why Rainfish Riviera is only getting number 18 on my ranking list. Number 17 is going to be Soda Festival. This is a great way to start Trap Team, as we're immediately thrust into a world of creativity and colour. The concept behind the level and the visuals are incredibly unique, helping this level to stand out even with the lack of challenges to overcome. You just carry over from section to section, fight a few basic enemies that are very easy to defeat, then you move along once again. The level doesn't really flow together very well, and any flow you were feeling is immediately cut by the constant dialogue and tutorials bogging down the pace of the entire level. Collectibles are also really basically placed and very easy to find, meaning that the only thing of note that makes this more memorable when compared to all the other introductory levels of Skylanders is basically the main thing that helps Trap Team stand out in the first place, the fact that it's a fine example of creativity and well-made level design. This is the first level in the game, and it is designed purposefully in this manner so that you can learn everything and not be immediately thrust into anything way too difficult. Number 16 is Mirror of Mystery, a level with one of the greatest concepts in Skylanders history. Everything is flipped so good becomes evil and vice versa. However, before this level is really given the time to explore this idea, it's cut short. Everything in this level is bare bones and basic. You spend more time gathering mech pieces than you do spend time in the actual mech. It leaves you feeling totally underwhelmed because the level is too busy rushing you to the end. It exists of short and generic sections, poorly stitched together, meaning the level has no flow to it and it offers nothing new that you don't get from the base game. The main benefit behind this level is that it is very fast paced, otherwise it's a total waste of its potential concept because it's such a great idea executed to such awful standards, with level design that isn't anything to write home about, which is a shame for an adventure pack level which you have to pay extra for. Number 15 is Mystic Mill. I actually like how this level is constantly shifting up gameplay on you. It means nothing is ever given the time to become stale. Every twist the level makes keeps you engaged, and it's a memorable level as a result. This level also has some of the best exploration of any level because you can easily find collectibles, but you must solve puzzles to actually get to them, which is a way better manner of which to reward the player, you could go as far to say, than simply just finding the collectibles and not having to do anything to get them after having found them. I must admit the platforming and turret sections are too long, whilst the other sections throughout the level are too short, which isn't perfect for pacing, and once again these sections don't really flow into one another, but luckily these flaws can be overlooked when it ends on such a high note, because the boss fight against Frankenstein is what you remember the level for, and it's tough enough for the point in which you are in the game. This is the halfway point, and it feels like difficulty is progressing organically at this point. But number 14 is going to be Phoenix Sanctuary, a level which seems to have a generic level theme at first. After all, we've seen these life-infested areas in Skylands before, but it's combined with unique architecture that the developers clearly put some thought behind, because they're designed to be used by birds, and what we're working up toward in this level is a phoenix chicken. Therefore, having all this infrastructure in place for a bird makes sense. This level always feels quite full, since collectibles are found in quick succession, since they're pretty close to one another, so you're never really given the time to get bored. I could say the idea of working toward an end goal is great, because you feel a sense of progression throughout the entire level and you never feel unaccomplished, but that same praise can be said for every single level in this game. It pretty much holds true no matter which level you talk about in this game, because this is essentially a game where you're a bounty hunter tracking down and capturing all these unique villains. Therefore, every level features these villains as you work toward the end goal of rounding them all up, every single one of them. It's what makes Trap Team as a whole a fantastic game, and I'm glad this level doesn't lose sight of that, though the level does end quite abruptly with a cutscene of all things. But the arena and the intense lead up to said arena, as you avoid eggs and defeat enemies, it gets quite intense and rather thrilling for the player, as you have to deal with combat on this scale so early into the game. In other words, this is simply one of the most engaging and creative levels in the game, with excellent level design that ensures you're always finding stuff so you're never given a chance to get bored. So it goes to show how good all the other levels coming up on this list are, because they only get better from here. And that includes our number 13 slot, Chompy Mountain. This features the first Doom Raider boss fight you actually battle one-on-one. Gulpa's gimmick really isn't a fight. A mountain is a generic theme which we have seen done before in Skylands. Luckily, because this mountain is very lush and green, it still stands out from Molten Mountain and the Frostfest Mountains. It's also useful that there is unique chompy architecture around to distract you visually. It goes to show that Toys R Bob were passionate about the presentation in this game, even if it still doesn't hold a candle to Swap Force standards. As for the rest of the level, it actually flows together quite well. Each section feels like an expansion upon the last, and it keeps you consistently hooked throughout the entire level, though unfortunately due to it being an early level within the game, it can still get boring with the lack of challenge you'll endure, and the collectibles are a little too easy to gather, as it's incredibly obvious where they'll be, and it makes them pretty hard to miss, so they don't feel all that rewarding to gather up in the first place. Trap Team does have some simple and lackluster elemental gates. Luckily, the magic one in here is pretty creative, and it stands out amongst all the other elemental gates as it gives you a unique challenge to tackle, rather than just another simple gate where you do practically nothing. This strength it even possesses over Phoenix Sanctuary, as that level had a really boring and lackluster water elemental gate. But getting back to Chompy Mountain, everything leads to the Chompy Mage boss battle. At times you wish you could just skip over the slightly more boring and slow-paced stuff to hurry up and get to the boss fight already. Though the difficulty spike is quite jarring and unwelcome, it's this notion of taking you off guard that truly grabs your attention so quickly, and all of a sudden you're thrust back into the intensity of the game, you're immersed by the fear it creates, and it makes the boss quite fun and definitely satisfying to beat. But at number 12, we have the final Trap Team Adventure Pack level to talk about, that being the Nightmare Express. Yeah, they really dropped the ball for the Adventure Pack levels in this game, and unfortunately, whilst Nightmare Express is undoubtedly the best of the four, it still falls victim to this curse. The scenery is generic and nothing we haven't seen before in other levels, both from this game and other Skylanders games preceding Trap Team. That means there is nothing distinctive to notice when playing through this level over something else. However, the level does still have a unique and creative hook to it, that being the humour. This is Flynn's retelling of the adventure. As such, we get a peek into his mindset, and watching his delusions unfold firsthand before us is quite hilarious indeed. The first half of the level is actually very well designed. Sure, it's merely but a generic cave section, but the platforming and puzzle solving is still executed to a satisfactory standard, and the need to get a Mega Bomb and roll it back to the intimidating tank. I've never taken this threat mildly ever since what happened to Tough Luck. You see what I mean? Those things are dealing damage right now. That's cool. Oh! Yep. I died. That sucks. Not gonna lie. But all joking aside, it's hilarious and incredibly satisfying to defeat Lob Goblin so easily because he chose to stand there like an idiot. For a main problem with this level is actually the train, unfortunately. Yeah, it's satisfying to loop around after you see the Mega Tank, then you roll the bomb all the way around to get back to it, but unfortunately that leads to the worst section of the level, like I said earlier, that is the train. And the problem is that these different train carts all just mesh together for me since they're repetitive and they're the exact same thing done over and over again. It gets stale very quickly. And that's where the level loses all of the immersion for me. Luckily the section is short, so even though you're bored it's still over pretty quick. You do still at least have the combat to keep you engaged, as it's fairly tough throughout the level, which grants the level enough to at least earn number 12 on the ranking list. Just like that, we've hit the halfway point of the ranking, so coming in at number 11 is Monster Marsh, the point in the ranking where all the levels from this point forward are ones that I really like. And Monster Marsh is no exception, given the mucky colour palette and spooky music and eeriness settles over the entire level, and you're enticed by such incredible atmosphere from beginning to end. The level is terrifying as it turns simple tasks like platforming for legendary treasure into hazardous death traps, and that fear is what keeps you on edge. It's very immersive. The level also has some of the best placed collectibles in the entire franchise, let alone some of the best in Trap Team. Due to how tough these collectibles are to find, it only increases your satisfaction upon finding them. I had such an adrenaline rush finally discovering where this damn treasure chest was hidden so well. Really, my only problem with this level is the slow paced nature in getting toward your end goal. The level determines the pace you travel at for you, rather than allowing you to interact with the game in your own manner and set your own pace. Due to how slow the marsh section is, it brings the entire level's pace into a crawl. However, that flaw can be offset by the fear this section builds. Danger is literally all around you, and the slightest misstep will result in great pain. If the swamp wasn't this punishing, then the atmosphere in the level simply wouldn't work. So I'm glad the swamp really punishes you when you do something wrong, because it keeps you invested as you're on edge throughout the entire level. Since I alluded to this earlier, this is the expansion upon it, that's what makes the level so great, and then you have the music on top of it. Monster Marsh is a fine example of you lose some, you win some. Overall, the level is fantastic, but it has enough pacing issues to drag the level all the way outside of the top 10 for this ranking video. But speaking of the top 10, the level kicking off the top 10 best Skylanders Trap Team levels is going to be the Sky Highlands. This level is pretty basic in its structure. You just make your way around this twisting crystalline structure. It leaves you with very little noteworthy in the pursuit of exploration, but the gameplay is constantly switched up so the level can keep you engaged by constantly feeling fresh. Even when the visuals don't give you all that much unique to invest yourself into, the flow from combat to skystones to turret sections and back again is really what entices you. These sections never take you off guard as they're expected to pop up. In other words, you can anticipate them because you're teased about it beforehand. Stairs means Taekwondo Crow, large open areas means combat, and turrets, well, they mean turrets, it's simple as that really. It actually leaves you looking forward to these little teasers as you're excited to be doing something new and constantly switching things up. It's a very fast paced and challenging level, as these turret sections and combat sections are tough in their own rights. They really challenge your game knowledge up to this point. Plus, Taekwondo Crow is incredibly charismatic as a villain, so you're motivated to carry on through the level just so you get to interact with him some more. This level becomes so much more memorable than it had any right to be because of its varying gameplay mechanics and the entertaining personality of Taekwondo Crow. We even get to start the level in the Archean Copter, which gives you a nice kick of nostalgia to ultimately put a smile on your face. And the section controls flawlessly, making it very fast paced. I'm actually upset when this section comes to an end. That's right, you heard me, I'm upset, because it's so much fun to free pilot and track down these pirates to shoot them down. It expands upon the linear corridor design you flew through in Auto Gyro Adventure. Then the rest of the level lives up to the same level of hype and fun of this section, and because of this, you never feel as though you're at a loss when you're playing through this level, as each section is just as good as the last. Heck! Even the Watergate is a massive highlight for this level, as the platforming is designed very well, so it's satisfying and rewarding to complete. Plus, it's never infuriating. If you mess up and have to start over, it feels as though it's entirely your fault to begin with, and it's never frustrating, it's never the game's fault, it's your own damn mistakes that cause this. But enough with singing praises about Sky Highlands, let's move on already. Coming in at number 9 is Time Town. This is a basic level design executed to perfection. You have a range of different mechanics as you'll constantly shift from puzzles to combat to platforming. Collectibles are well hidden and feel rewarding to discover them, but not nearly as absurd and challenging as Monster Marsh, which does become infuriating after a while. Easily one of the most admirable things behind this level is the background detail and the visuals. These colours really pop as they contrast each other nicely. From the very start you can see the end in the very distance, making you excited to work towards it. Plus, most things within the level reflect French culture, especially for the Pinchy. I do apologise for that accent, but the point here is that his charm elevates the entertainment value of the entire level, and it's very welcome to see different cultures reflected in Skylands, so that then everyone across the globe can enjoy it. The only downside to this level is how easy it's played. There is nothing to really stand out, which can make the level less memorable when compared to others, especially those coming up later in the ranking. But still, despite how basic this level is, the layout and the challenges are well designed, and the entire level flows to help keep your immersion as you're entertained throughout, and the pacing is always moving forward thanks to how short and well executed the level is. Everything feels like a reward, even fighting the only boss the level has to offer, since the boss fight itself is tucked away and hidden, so fighting Crosscrow feels like a reward in and of itself. It's a shame that this does result in the level feeling way too easy for how late into the game it is. This would have worked better as a midpoint to the game rather than one of the last levels. Number 8 is Chef Zeppelin, a level with creativity poured into every nook and cranny. It took its concept and rolled with it to the best they truly could. It's not just a Zeppelin, it's a Zeppelin with frickin' tomato cannons, spinning kebab skewers, grills for platforms, and cheese graters for pathways, as well as cardboard pop-ups advertising Chef Pepperjack's food. The level itself is an expression of Chef Pepperjack's personality, and it helps you learn more about the villain before you fight him. It actually does a great job building hype up for the fight. After you see all of these details, you can't wait to see how Chef Pepperjack will use them to fight against you. There's also a Skystones tutorial in here, but the Skystone Smash is the quickest iteration and it only pops up twice in the level, meaning that these constant minigames don't actually distract from the pacing. It's all topped off with an excellent boss fight, which is once again a huge difficulty spike, which can be frustrating, but it helps keep you immersed in the game as you're on edge throughout the entire thing. Its intensity is what makes it so satisfying to play through in the moment, and then when you finally beat him, the victorious feeling can truly be left to settle. Number 7 is Willikin Workshop. I really wish they kept the world switching gimmick from Willikin Village. Imagine having to switch worlds to gain access to things like trains, and then switch back again to get past walls. They could have really expanded upon the foundations of Willikin Village on a level design standpoint, and it would have been cool to see 2 different worlds for the aesthetics alone in this level. But even without the world switching mechanic, this level is still excellently designed. Using trains to traverse is a genius idea. It rewards your speed as you won't have to sit around and wait if you're quick enough, but it's not like waiting is a huge problem because you'll have plenty of awesome background details to soak in whilst you wait, or you'll have things like crates to beat up so you feel as though you're always doing something. I clearly love how progression in this level is tackled, but what about everything else? I love the balance in this level. Bosses come in at the perfect time to break up the level and keep the pace moving forward. Combat is a perfect level of challenge for this point in the game, and the conveyors give you hazards to dodge, and the crane sequence is a refreshing change of pace to keep the same gameplay loop from getting stale. Then the Dr. Crankcase fight is cherry atop the cake. The cutscenes do break up the flow of the fight a little bit, and they can be a little jarring. This is negative for the pacing, but luckily they're skippable upon replay. And on the bright side, it does reinforce the sense of progression you feel when fighting against this boss. The different stages get harder than one another as more hazards are introduced and the arena becomes smaller, therefore harder to maneuver around. The constant rise in difficulty ensures you're always challenged, and once again it never allows things to get stale, so you're always entertained. This is a fantastic level which is only topped by 6 more masterpieces. The Telescope Tower is at number 6. I remember watching gameplay for this level before I actually played it, and I was not impressed with what I saw, so I wasn't looking forward to actually playing this level, but then I got around to actually playing it, and it taught me that looks can be deceiving because, first of all, this level is straight up bizarre. The randomness of this level is what sticks with you. Jack-in-the-box traps, flying dolphins, disappearing platforms. It is all particularly strange, and it makes the level all the more memorable for it. What's even more clever is that everything feels as though it fits, because this is a weird and wacky dream state. Everything feels as though it's part of this random yet elaborate dream that can't really be explained, a bit like dreams themselves. The level doesn't have much combat, its substance relies more so on puzzle solving and exploration. Luckily, those two elements within this level are perfectly balanced to make it engaging throughout. Nothing overstays its welcome, so nothing gets stale, and it's very rewarding to fully explore all of these areas, whether it's for random minigames you're presented with to earn collectibles, or just a funny NPC interaction. Everything feels rewarding in its own right. Unfortunately though, this leads to a final boss fight which is about as underwhelming as you can get really. Dreamcatcher is a joke. Her attacks do very little damage, she possesses very little health herself, and you can even cheese the entire boss fight because when her shields come up, which is meant to prolong the fight, you can simply destroy said shields by jumping off the ledge and attacking the beds. You attack her while she's so busy talking to you, and that's what creates a very infuriating yet anticlimactic end to the level. It's the only blemish on an otherwise interesting and fast-paced level that really sticks with you because of its memorability, everything being so unique and distinctive. You won't find a level like this anywhere else, that's for sure. Number 5 is Lair of the Golden Queen. Much like how Time Town reflects French culture, this level reflects Egyptian culture with its engraved architecture and yellow-based colour palette to look just like the Egyptian deserts. Outside of that, this level has some fantastic design. The crumbling platforms keep you on edge, and it ensures you're always moving so you never get bored and momentum can be stored up for the sake of decent pacing. It's a shame the level incorporates the spy bots because this exploration of them is basic and is only a small part behind the level. It's basic and never really gets expanded upon, so it feels more like a waste of potential than anything at all. It's better than heading down a straight corridor at least, so I will give it props for that. There's more of a level of engagement even when it comes to these particular parts of the level. The collectibles are also fairly straightforward in this level, except that cursed legendary treasure, which gives you no indication whatsoever as to the fact that you need to jump onto all of the tiles to gain access to it. The obscurity of this task is a little frustrating, I do admit. But some of the fights here are incredibly tense. They immerse you because of the challenge, and you truly do come out of it feeling invincible. It's all topped off with that incredible Golden Queen boss fight, which is very challenging, and the intensity is elevated by the music, which keeps you incredibly involved within the fight. I enjoy how this boss demands for multiple skills that you've learned from previous levels leading up to this. You can't just attack Golden Queen because this isn't your typical boss. There are projectiles, shifting platforms, shockwaves, and much more to have to avoid. The attack pattern is well designed, and it makes this boss not only challenging, but fun and unique as well. It's such a memorable close to the entirety of the level. Number 4 is Operation Troll Rocket Steel, a level with incredible music that I can't even play because of the copyright, but trust me, it is amazing. You're traversing these lands, freeing Captain Marbu and acting as the last line of defense in this otherwise hopeless situation. For lack of a better way of putting it, you are the underdog, and that's incredibly compelling for this level. All the side activities you go off and do are welcome breakups to the constant gameplay loop, and it keeps every twist of the level feeling fresh, as nothing is really left to linger or overstay its welcome. My main problem with the level is that it's got more long straightaways and narrow corridors, but given the theming of the level, it makes more sense to have the level design sprinkled in here. Plus, it's very easy to forget about any of the flaws when this level has such perfect music playing in the background to make the whole thing feel like a grand experience. It's also topped off with an incredible arena where the onslaught of enemies is the least of your concern. You also have to avoid the fire hazards, and it's so much more fun to best all your enemies despite the difficulties. Overall, I love the theming and the challenge this level represents. To say that you feel victorious at the end is an understatement. Number 3 is the ultimate weapon. They did a great job making this level feel final and epic. You truly end off this game with a bang, as the dark colour palette is incredibly intimidating and reminds you constantly that you're in the most dangerous place imaginable. The enemy onslaught is tricky and never lets you lose focus, or you wind up getting punished, which is obviously the last thing that you want, so that's why it's important that you maintain said focus. And this combat is still broken up by mini games and puzzles. In a sense, it's got a long marathon style to it, which means that nothing is really left to linger, and it keeps you constantly engaged, but without that challenge of the initial marathon, then there is no way you can feel as victorious as you do at the end. Collectibles are simple but incredibly effective as well. You're so driven to hurry up and make it to the end that you miss stuff, and it feels entirely your fault because looking back on it, it's incredibly obvious that these treasure chests were just barely outside of the camera's range. All you needed to do was experiment a little with your movement. The level design here is just plain genius in that regard, as everything incorporated feels like it belongs, and it's just a fun area to explore that is always reminding you of the end goal. It is terrifying in and of itself, so it keeps you hooked by keeping you on edge and anticipating that end goal. Then you have the chaos fight itself, and boy is this a boss to write home about. The attack patterns are tough and demand your full attention. It brings back the fan favourite Doom Sharks for a pleasant kick of nostalgia, and the boss takes a long time to defeat, once again adding to that marathon style of the level that I was alluding to earlier. This insane difficulty actually makes adrenaline start to shoot through you, which is an incredible feeling, as it means the fight truly does stick with you, as does the moment of victory. There is no other fight in Skylanders that leaves you this satisfied when you beat it, and this feeling couldn't come about without the challenge of a marathon beforehand. Beating this level is truly an event. But number 2, our runner-up is going to be Secret Sewers of Supreme Stink, a level most people hate for some reason, and I can't fathom why. The architecture here is unique, and the NPCs have some generally funny lines which keep you entertained. The puzzles keep the level feeling fresh and the pace moving forward. There are constant hazards to be wary of, so you're punished for losing your attention. That unique architecture I mentioned earlier leads to some excellent background details which are fun to look out for. It's pretty random and therefore quite memorable when you see a rubber duck floating in all that sewage. It's an image that doesn't leave your mind anytime soon, because it's not exactly like you're going to see anything similar to it throughout the rest of the game. It works in the same manner as the flying dolphins and telescope towers, to put it in simple terms. But I just like this level for its layout. Its collectibles are well placed, and it's a fun concept to really explore upon. It has creativity poured into every nook and cranny, making this level more distinctive and memorable as a result. But my number 1, without a shadow of doubt, is gonna be the future of Skylands. This future of Skylands stands out from a visual and concept standpoint, because going into the future allows for developers to explore different ideas of how technologies and enemies will have evolved. It creates an interesting aesthetic that you don't see anywhere else, hence the uniqueness, and the colour palette too is also sharp and contrasting, as we have purples and yellows which really pop together to make an attractive look for your eyes to truly feast upon. All the enemies and hazards feel in place here, as they are completely unique to this level and not commonly seen outside of it. Nothing in this level gets stale, as it has some excellent design for its puzzles and level layout which keep you engaged and highly entertained. The only thing I'm not a large fan of is the ship section where you shoot away the shields. It's just a little too basic to be fun, and it lingers for way too long, bringing the level's pace into a crawl. But then you're brought to the final Wolfgang boss to conclude the level with, and those flaws just kind of immediately seep away because of the grand feeling you get from the challenge behind this boss, whose attack patterns are unique, as well as an extension of Wolfgang's personality, which is really clever. There is so much fun to have with battling against Wolfgang, and the intensity only increases as the fight goes along, which keeps you invested and it truly feels rewarding afterward. This level follows the golden rule of creating pretty much anything. Leave the audience wanting more by giving you less, and this level is so well made I was left wanting more, but I don't get any of that, so that makes this level all the more unique, and the fact that I'm left wanting so much more is a testament to just how good the level truly is. I cannot, in good conscience, end of this video without first thanking all of my incredible channel members whose continued support help make these videos possible. Without them, these videos would be near impossible to make, so from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate every last one of them. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, there are plenty of options on screen now to explore, and please consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. On that note, this video is coming to an end, so thank you so much as always for watching. Until the next video arises, peace!